In September, you said that Jay was just kind of scratching the surface. Jaden was scratching the surface. What have you seen from him through over half the season?
Yeah, we've been really encouraged with his progress. I think in September, you're right. I thought he had some really good moments, and I felt like he, as much as anyone, felt like there was a couple of opportunities that he could have made plays on, and that he was probably his biggest critic early on, and so you felt like you knew that he was going to have even games like he's had in the last few, but. He's a guy that can do a lot more than just be a big outside receiver. He's a guy that's, we're able to put him in the slot. He's good in the run blocking game. And so I think anytime you have a guy like that, you feel like the sky is the limit that he can grow each week because you can have him out there on all downs. You're not just boxing him into being in one position, being on one side of the field, only doing one thing. And so anytime you got a guy like that, you feel like he's got, a ton of potential to have big moments like he had even in that last game.
And how important has his college experience been to helping Rocco adjust to a starting role as a redshirt freshman?
Yeah, having a guy that has experience being, in big moments, in critical moments at the college level, I do think is really helpful. Even watching his film and watching what he did at Eastern Kentucky, you knew that he could be relied on third down. He could be relied on in the red zone. He was a guy that could be featured in multiple ways. And so, obviously, you got to make that transition and got to learn a new offense, got to be, and do that on a different level. But you felt like even coming out of spring that he'd be able to do that and make that transition, in a smooth way. And so I think, yeah, for Rocco to have multiple guys that he felt like had experience, and even though that experience wasn't here, that he could lean on and he could rely on, I do think is helpful, as a quarterback.
Coach, going along with that and kind of Jaden's development, when you were recruiting him out of the portal, what did you like about him? What about him made him the guy that y'all wanted to bring in?
I liked his parents. That's first and foremost. He's got great parents, and his mom's in education. His dad is just like he's one of those dudes. When you're around him, you know that the right things matter to him, matter to his family in general. And so I think you're always trying to look for just the right fit. The portal can obviously you're trying to find guys that or you recruited out of high school or you've got a background with, which that wasn't the case with him. And so all of a sudden when you met his parents, you met his family, you felt like he'd be a great fit here. When we got him on campus, he just, he had that feel to him that he felt like he was one of us already. And you felt like, I know he made some other visits and stuff, but you just felt like it was going to work out and you felt like this was going to be the place for him. I saw his parents after the Cincinnati game. And, I was super fired up for him in the game and was super fired up that they were there. But more than anything, you felt like he was the fit from who he was, what he was, that he cared about in education, that he cared about team, that he cared about all these things that we felt like were pillars of our program and values of Coach Campbell and the rest of our staff. And so the way that it's worked out, not only take the on-the-field stuff away, the way that it's worked out in the locker room, the way that it works out when he's training down there, when he's on the practice field, that's what you felt like you would get from him when you met him and you met his family.
Coach, what about your unit has impressed you the most in terms of ratcheting up the running game production over the last, 3 or so games? Yeah,
I think there's multiple rooms that I think share that responsibility. Not only the running back room and what they've done, and those guys, multiple guys stepping up and making plays, obviously with the ball in their hands, but obviously the offensive line and what they've been able to do. I think Coach Clinton's had a really good feel of obviously. Not only those guys getting reps of being next to each other, but also what we're doing schematically. Just having a good feel of what those guys feel best about, what they feel most comfort with, where they feel like they can make adjustments. I thought, even in both of those games, not only having success running the ball in the first half, but I think anytime you have success running the ball in the second half, it a lot of times comes down to adjustments. And I thought, Coach Clinton and Coach Miles are making those adjustments and understanding what was going on, how we're being attacked, how we can kind kind of make those adjustments on the sideline in the locker room and come out and have a good second half running the ball. I think it's attributed to those guys. And then again, I said it, but Coach Mauser and those tight ends, they have brought some unique physicality in the C and D gap to go win. They can go win in space on the perimeter, blocking safeties, blocking defensive backs. They can also win blocking defensive ends. And I think anytime you have that ability, it definitely can challenge a team in unique ways. We feel like we can put our tight ends, we can put their hand in the dirt, and they can go and be physical on the line of scrimmage as well as be out in space on the perimeter, which helps that.
I imagine you spent part of your bye week watching a little bit of film and maybe even watching games on Saturday. What's been your impression of where the Big 12 is as a whole right now and how things set up for this kind of 5-week finish?
I did watch games Saturday. That's probably the worst thing I did the whole weekend is like you sit there and watch as a coach and you watch which you guys probably get to watch more college football than me, but there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens and it puts this like terrible feeling in your stomach. So I had to turn it off. I didn't even watch a 7 o'clock game. I turned it off. I lied. I watched the early parts of the TCU K-State game and but a lot of the other stuff, man, it was hard to watch because it just, you see stuff that happens and you're like, oh my gosh, like, we need to probably talk about that so that doesn't happen to us. Or, man, they're doing something that we probably should try to do. And, you just go down these different wormholes that you should probably stay out of. That being said, college football is it's similar every single year. When you get to this point of the season, you got teams, and even you're going and playing this team that feel like had a similar start to us. Everybody starts off in probably different spots based on the experience they have from the year before. Then you get to this part of the year, and everybody's got a better feel of who they are and what they can do, and what they feel like can put them in the best position. And that's the challenging part about playing a team like this is you feel like you've had a similar start to the season and you're both kind of getting your footing underneath you, and then it comes down to execution and being a team that can execute in the critical moments, and the offense, defense, special teams can all lean on each other and find ways to be successful throughout the course of the game. And it's a long 60-minute game, and you flip on games at the start of it. One thing's happening, you turn it on at the end, and you see a lot change within the course of a game just because you got 18 to 22-year-olds, and for them to sustain that long, it's still a challenge. And so that's obviously what we're pushing our guys to do. That's what we spent the bye week doing is how we can do that better week in and week out. And I'm excited about obviously the challenge of going on the road again and playing another challenging team.
Coach, Brocco said that when Jaden got here, to go back to him, that he maybe didn't fully understand what his full potential was and maybe how to get to it. What was the process for you as a first-year offensive coordinator, former receivers coach, of getting him to understand this is how good you can be, and now we got to get you to that point? Yeah, no, that's dead on. I felt like you're exactly right. Like when we started to see him, and again, I would say it's more of like you start to see him in the way that he trains, the way that he went about his business, the way that he just had a level of maturity to him. You kind of felt like, man, I'm you get on the field with him and he makes plays, but you almost didn't feel like he knew that he could go and have a chance to take over a game at times, that he had a chance to really be a dominant force on the field. And I think number one, we encouraged him just of all the little things leading up to that product that he wants at the end. Yeah, you want to go down the field and make a play, but here's all the things that you got to do leading up to that. And I think he really bought into that. And then I think to be honest with you, I felt like Coach Pauly did a great job even in fall camp of really the reps that he got him just to grow him as a complete football player. You would have days where I felt like he just grew. Man, he grew in the run blocking game, and he grew in just understanding leverage and making decisions on routes. And so I thought Coach Pauly did a really good job of just growing him at the right. You never felt like he was overwhelmed. You felt like every day he got better, which obviously gave him the chance to walk into the season and feel like he could have a lot of success.
Rocco said something before you got in here. I asked him, about what flipped after after the Ohio game. What flipped, and I asked him what players were the most vocal after the game. First player that came out of his mouth was Ben Bramer. What's that mean? A true freshman taking over vocal leadership. I mean, what, talk about that a little bit. I mean, what kind of gumption is there, being that we can't talk to Ben Bramer?
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. No, it says a lot about Ben, and it probably says a lot about even just that class in general. I think you've got a lot of really mature young guys that just honestly, and I know we said this, even coming out of fall camp, talking to you guys, that there was a little bit of a different feel to some of those guys. And I think Ben's maturity, it comes from the fact that he's been coached his whole life in a way that I think is really similar to how we coach. And so he's got an ability to see things and see how things are supposed to be done, that's all he knows. He only knows that is the right way because that's how his mom and dad raised him. That's how his dad coached him. It's the reason why he won a state championship. It's the reason why he had a lot of success. But his ability to be able to communicate that and not feel like, I think the reason why a freshman could say that is because number one, there wasn't a whole bunch of experience in that locker room in general. So we, in moments, especially early on, you're looking for guys to be able to step up, and there's not a bunch of people that are sitting there in those seats, in those chairs that have been doing it. So, those were moments where you're kind of looking around of who is going to step up, who is going to say something. And then number two, the work that guy puts in, nobody was going to say anything, that man, A, he didn't have the right to say something, or B, man, that guy hasn't put in everything that he could to go and be the best player that he could be so we could be the best team we could be. That's the type of guy he is. So for him to step up in that moment, and again, like I said, the guys who the other guys who stepped up, the other young guys who I do feel like have leadership capacity to them, leadership capability to them, it's because of how they work, it's because of how they prepare, it's because Ben Bramer is here at the same time every day, does the same things. It's because those guys, they take care of their academics, they work hard in the weight room, they practice hard every day. I mean, we had a playing practice today, and it was a special teams rep, and Ben is like running down the sideline and dives after somebody, in a Tuesday practice, and at 9 in the morning, he's a backup on the special team, so it's just, you see some of those things start to come to life, and you got a few guys that they're a little bit different, and they are able to push in a little bit different way because of the way that they come to work.
Speaking of special teams, did you guys go, and you kind of mentioned this responding to Travis, did you guys go over rules about fair catching?
They probably did. I've graduated out of the special teams room. I used to get to hang out with those guys a lot more than I do now, but I'm sure they did. Those are a lot of those are the things. That's a tough call. That's a tough situation to be in. But those are the stomach twisting moments that I feel like watching college football, boy, it'd make you sick.
Nate, from week one to now, what have you most learned in your evolution about doing this job, leading an offense, calling plays, anything in that area?
Travis asked that a week ago or a couple weeks back, and probably caught me off guard a little bit. And I really think it's the same things that I eventually got to then is that, you got certain people that I think in moments that you're able to rely on. And I think that the more that you know your locker room, the more that you know those guys in there, I think the better you're going to be able to call plays, to be able to put those guys in position. You know what they're comfortable with. The guys that, hey, right, wrong, and different, this is a critical moment, and this is a guy we feel comfortable with. And obviously, the more of those guys you have, the better off you're going to be. The more that you feel like, hey, we got a bunch of plays on this call sheet, and we feel like we can call any of them, and those guys can go execute. But, when you have an offensive line that is starting to grow, and you start to feel like that about in a critical moment where you feel like you need to go and run the ball. You've got a group of receivers or tight ends that you feel like have the ability to make plays that the guys that you can lean on, what they do well, and your quarterback. You feel like after the first few weeks of just getting and he does a really good job, I would say, sometimes you get quarterbacks and you ask them, what do you like, what do you not like, and they're giving you coach speak. Hey, coach, I'm good with everything. You just call them. But I do think Rocco has some really good communication on stuff that he does like, stuff that he feels most comfortable with. And we go back and forth on that. The play that he hits to Jalen against Oklahoma State, one of our explosive runs or explosive passes early on in that game, he didn't feel comfortable with that play on Thursday, all right, getting ready for the game. But I felt really comfortable with it and really felt like it was a play that we could go and attack. So we spent a lot of time just walking through, slowing it down to the point in which by the end of Thursday, I asked him about the play before we went out to the practice field. 1 to 10, man, how comfortable you feel on this play? And he said 6, and I was thrown off, and I was like, man, maybe he's thinking a different scale, 6 out of 6. But no, he said 6 out of 10, so I had to stop everything, and we had to slow down the play, and honestly, that's what it's about, because he's the one that's out there doing it. It doesn't matter how comfortable I am; he's got to be the guy. But that's where I really do I appreciate the way that he goes about his work, because he's going to give you some real feedback, some real reasons on why he does or doesn't like things, and we're going to be able to talk through things and get to what fits him best, what fits us best. So I think that part in understanding that locker room, understanding that offensive side of the ball is probably as important as anything.